to a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country of where this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today.
Hope Book Club with Georgia Free. Because life's just better with a book.
Hi, I'm Georgia and welcome to episode 71 of the Hope Book Club podcast, where we chat about books from a hope-filled Christian lens. I'd love for you to join our Facebook group. First up, Hope Book Club on Facebook. You can search there. There's a whole bunch of like-minded people and we pretty much chat about books every day, so it's a great place to be. And as always, this episode will be spoiler-free, so if you haven't read the book, don't worry, you can keep listening. Today's guest is Joni Boyd, who works in the digital space here at Hope and also someone who is always reading. Honestly, I admire how much you read, Joni. It's a delight to be able to chat to her today about Homecoming by Kate Morton, which was a favourite of both of us.
Oh, so good.
It's a historical mystery spanning about 60 years in South Australia and Sydney. Before we get into the book itself, Joni, I would love to ask you about reading in general. Where did your love of books actually begin?
Early childhood. I remember reading books like Snugglepot and Cuddlepie. My mum used to read them to us. And I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons I loved this book so much. Like Aussie books, Aussie writers. I just love it.
I love that so much. What type of books do you normally like to read? Obviously, this was a favourite for you, but what do you find yourself kind of gravitating towards now?
Well, I'm someone who likes to read for entertainment. I like to feel good after I read a book. Sometimes I'll try and read something that's important and hard-hitting, but I'm a little bit soft.
Yeah, no,
so I usually like books that make me think but leave me feeling pretty good.
Okay. And you would say this book definitely ticked all those boxes?
So much.
Now, I am someone, Joni, who I easily get into a reading slump. And I feel like since the pandemic, it's definitely been harder to get back into like a regular reading routine. And I feel like you've always got a book on the go. I know you've got a long commute. You do audiobooks and things like that. How do you stay out of a reading slump? Do you have any tips?
No. I mean, I'm in a reading slump right now because where do you go after reading such a good book? I don't know. I'm in a slump, so maybe you can tell me what to do.
Okay. Well,
maybe you can give me a tip.
I think we're just in the slump together, to be honest. What I mentioned before that you have like a quite a long commute to work. You have it's something like 2 hours of the day or more,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You've listened to audiobooks?
Yes.
What makes a really good audiobook for you? Because I feel like it can be hit and miss sometimes.
It really can. I think for me, the narrator's voice makes a big difference. So this book was narrated by Claire Foy from The Crown, and she has such a beautiful British accent. Other books, I've really loved the book, but I've really struggled with the voice of the narrator. Like it depends.
Yeah.
If you just some voices you just could sit there and listen to forever, and that makes a huge difference.
So Claire Foy, I didn't actually listen to this book. I read it. So Claire Foy, was she the narrator for all of the...
Yep.
Okay.
She puts on cute little accents and it's amazing.
Adorable. Because I was going to say, this book is across timelines. It's across different characters' perspectives as well. Did you watch The Crown, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I love Claire Foy.
Yes.
I'm a big fan.
She's amazing.
All right. Let's get into the book. Yes. I'm so excited to discuss Homecoming by Kate Morton. It was published last year, already a New York Times bestseller. This is actually Kate's 7th book. I had no idea that she was behind some great Aussie novels. The House at Riverton, The Clockmaker's Daughter, The Forgotten Garden. They're just some of her works. Can you believe that every single book that she's written, every novel, has become a New York Times bestseller?
It's incredible.
I mean,
what a queen.
100% success rate. She is a busy, busy lady. But Back to Homecoming. I'm going to try and describe this book in my own words. It is a long, long book, but it is basically a historical murder mystery. It starts off in the Adelaide Hills in 1959. A local man was leading his horse for a little drink and a swim after a very hot day, and he makes a gruesome discovery. A mother and her 3 children lying on picnic blankets, seemingly asleep. But on closer inspection, he realizes that they are all dead. And therein begins one of the most baffling murder investigations in South Australian history. The town called Tambilla is absolutely rocked by this. And for the next 70 years, there really isn't a satisfactory way this is resolved. It's thought that maybe the mother killed her children and then killed herself, but there is no real evidence to the contrary. Eventually, the town moves on. And we fast forward to 2018, where Jess, a journalist who has been living in London for 20 years, is called back to Sydney after her grandmother had a fall. In that house, she actually finds a book that's been written about this mystery, about the Turner family, who all of a sudden wound up dead. Jess is in need of a story, and she soon realizes upon reading this book that her own family is somehow involved more than she realized. And so she sets on a journey to discover the truth. And that is where this book basically begins. Joni, tell me, what were your first impressions of this book?
I just think, for me, the front cover, it's beautiful, the Australian native plants, but I just think she really captures the mystery of Australian rural life. You know, I've lived in rural countries on and off throughout my life, but living here in Sydney, we don't really know what it's like. And I think it's easy to idealize that lifestyle. I know I do. I'd love to live out in the bush. And I think what really got me at the beginning of this book is just the way that she does that through all the generations, that mystery of living out in the bush and the meaning of all of the plants, and it's amazing. I loved it.
It's incredible. And it basically starts, it's a dual timeline story, basically actually a triple timeline in the end, but we're going from 1959 where this murder essentially happened and this town was sent into turmoil. And then it kind of flips back to Sydney 2018 where Jess is trying to figure out, how her family's connected to this. There is obviously lots to love about this book. The way that Kate writes mystery, the way that she connects Australian native landscapes and towns. It really makes you feel like you're kind of embedded in the story. What did you love most about this?
It's a big story and
It's
there's
huge.
a lot happening.
It's actually a really long book as well.
It's such a long book, which is great.
It doesn't slow. It doesn't slow. You can kind of keep turning the pages.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
I think what I love about it is that there isn't a character there that isn't flawed. Some of the characters might turn in judgment on each other, but the narrative never does. It's like she's always taking into account the fact that they're all human, they're all doing their best, and let's not just cast judgment just yet. I really loved that. You could get to know these characters more fully rather than having them kind of typecast as the goodie or the baddie. I loved that.
Yeah, it's so true. And one of our favourite characters, Percy, who we actually meet in the very first chapter, he is this, I fell in love with him immediately. And then when everything comes to light, you realize, this is not a spoiler, by the way, you realize just not everyone is how they are on the surface. And secrets are definitely kept. And I think that was a huge part of the story. I kind of want to say a little bit what happens. I'm not going to spoil it, but this murder investigation, basically a mother and her 3 children wind up dead. They were having a picnic and a local finds them and there's been no foul play. They don't know how they died, essentially. And she'd just had a 4th baby and the baby was missing. So that's how it all starts. It's just such a complicated story and we learn about all these characters and all these locals and every kind of person comes to light. But there is this sense of secrecy in the town that has literally been going on for 70 plus years.
Yeah.
And you've got characters that are keeping secrets, you think, for the good of their families, self-preservation. You've got other people keeping secrets that I can't see the logic of, like just kind of cruelty. How did you see the role of secrets kind of play out throughout the book, and how kind of powerful did you see that sense of secrecy play out?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It really highlights the fact that secrets cause a lot of damage. People suffered, I would say, till for their entire lives because of some of the secrets that were kept.
There was some generational, what we recognize now as generational trauma, but they wouldn't have had words for in the 50s.
Yes. Yeah. And especially like we were talking about the mental health ramifications of those secrets. It's a really big deal.
And you've got people that were blamed for this murder, or even though no charges were ever laid, thought to have committed this terrible crime. And in the end, they weren't. They weren't the people that did this. And yet everyone who knew them, everyone who had kept that secret had passed away. And it's like they never got that sense of justice. That actually really hurt me, I think.
Yeah.
There was that real sense of like, this was not like a murder mystery that was like, oh, and the bad guy gets caught and there's justice. I don't think there really, in a lot of ways, there wasn't a sense of closure at the end because it had been so long.
Yeah.
Did you think any of the secrets that they kept were justified? Could you see, like, if obviously, don't want to imagine being in the story, but could you see yourself doing the same thing as some of these characters?
I don't know. I think I'm honest to a fault sometimes.
There would have been no secrecy with you. You would have been like, well, this is what happened.
Yeah. I don't know. What about you?
I'm a terrible liar and I have a terrible poker face. So I think as soon as I got into an interrogation room, I would just crumble. I'm terrible under pressure. But in saying that, a lot of these characters had no idea what was going on and never knew the truth. So it's very interesting what you say about small towns and rural life because we really don't know how it's like. And I think the individualism that we have now in terms of like we have our own family units and we, have our kind of friends maybe and colleagues, but we're not living in that real kind of village, rural living that perhaps people did in the 50s. Like people in that town relied on each other.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't think we do anymore. So I think it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. I don't know what I would have done because I've never grown up in that context. I like to think I would have done the right thing, but then you think, what is the right thing? Because you've got 20 different characters with 20 different versions of what they think is the truth and what happened with all these ramifications. I don't know. And I think that brings us to the point of like, as Christians, what is the right thing to do in that situation? Like you try and be honest and you try and do what you think is right. And then as we saw for some of these characters, 70 years down the track, what they thought was the right thing at the time turned out to be the worst possible thing they could do because they had a skewed version of reality. Oh, I struggled with that. I really did.
Yeah. It's a lot. Like I felt like, in the Bible it says bringing the darkness into the light. Lots of different ways it talks about not keeping things in the dark. And when you track back to the very beginning, once you know how this ends, when you track back and think if a couple of people would have just told the truth.
Yeah, this wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have been like this,
That's actually very interesting, bringing the darkness into the light, because I feel like a lot of this book, literally and metaphorically, was in the shadows, under the cover of darkness, under the cover of the big leafy trees, and it's really quite powerful actually. I want to talk about the actual mystery because I love a good mystery book. Like love. I am the person that suspects everyone from the start. If I know I'm getting a mystery, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be caught out by any of you. I am going to suspect you and you and you and you and you. And it was so hard to do this with this book because I loved them all, because I'm like, oh, wow, you are incredible and I love what you do as a character, and yet you could be a murderer. It was quite interesting. What's your process of trying to figure out a mystery novel?
Well, generally I just go with it. I just enjoy the ride. I just enjoy the highs and lows. But I do try and pay attention to small details. I know for you, though, how early did you pick it?
Okay. There was a lot of things to pick, by the way. There was like 12 different things that
true.
I did not pick. But one major plot point where I just had a hunch, and I remember texting you a couple of days ago and I'm like, I have no evidence for this. I just believe that this thing has happened. And as I went on and on, I'm like, the less sure I got, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not. And then it all came to light and I was actually correct. And I was so proud of myself.
So good.
I felt like a little detective. And I think that's the first time I've ever guessed anything in a mystery novel because I always try and grab the little details. And honestly, the detail that really pulled this all together and was like the reason for the murder, I never would have guessed it.
Oh, no.
It's mentioned like once. There's no way anyone can get this. And it was just the way that she tied it all together at the end and just made you literally question everything that you've been reading.
Yep.
So amazing. I want to quickly talk about also the dual timeline, from going from the 50s to present time, 2018, present-ish. Did you enjoy that? Do you think that she did that quite well? Because that can be a really difficult thing to do sometimes in a book, I feel like.
Oh, I thought it was so interesting because you've got this whole other perspective and the way that she did it was seamless.
That's true.
Yeah, and even just the way that she, she's a journalist herself, the main character, and even the way that she had these internal dialogues about whether, the ethics of the way that Daniel Miller wrote that book.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about that. There is a book that's embedded within the book, this true crime. Essentially, a journalist wrote about the murder without, back in the 70s, without knowing anything that actually happened. But he wrote it in the form of a novel. And there was this like ethical debate of, is it actually okay to write nonfiction in a fictional way? What do you actually think of that? You are a journalist. You have literally write for a living.
Yeah.
Do you think it's okay to do that?
I think it's really tricky because I think if you add context, you make the people more relatable.
Sure.
So I think if you're just writing the facts, people can end up looking like a number and people don't necessarily empathize with them. Whereas when you're adding this context, you're creating an actual character and hopefully that's true to form. I think it's really powerful. But I think you probably need to have little asterisks, a little bit of creative license taken here. Yeah. But I think, stories are powerful. And if you just give a list of facts, people aren't going to relate to that.
I agree. And I kind of think, I do wonder though, because Daniel Miller himself said he was privy to even some things that the police weren't privy to. So I actually think that he had a responsibility to the law to release those things and he didn't.
That's true.
But in saying that, it made a really good book. So I was happy for it. But yeah, as a character, I definitely felt it was a little grey. There was no black and white for sure. It definitely was a little bit shady. But I think that throughout the book, you actually hear more about his story and understand why he did what he did. I actually think it serves as a good reminder for all of us to just be aware of what we're reading, because I think truth sometimes is subjective and a lot of things are just coloured by the context or life experience that an author brings to a piece. So I think it's actually really important to be thinking about that, especially as journalists when there is just so much noise and so much media saturated, and sometimes we don't know what's truth, and there are conflicting voices that kind of being like, well, what am I supposed to believe on this particular subject because I'm hearing like 20 different opinions. I think it's just important to think, oh, well, no one's actually coming at anything from like an absolute truth because everyone has their own life experience and kind of ways of thinking about an issue.
What did you think about in the end? I won't make a spoiler.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
What did you think about when he almost removed himself from the narrative and he changed the way that he was writing it because he found out some things and realized, I don't know.
So he like made himself a third person character? Yeah. I think that just comes back to the ethical. That's where, for me, it all started to fall apart. And if you read the novel, you understand why. Because he found out some things, and he's like, I can no longer be an objective, or what he thought was an objective party to this. Yeah, there were some ethical things. I think if he acted with the knowledge that he had at various points in the novel, that things could have been very different. Let's just say that.
Yeah, again, lives would have been a little bit easier.
If the adults in this book just talk to each other.
It's all it takes.
It all comes back to communication, honestly. Is there anything, Joni, we've sung the praises of this book. Do you think there's anything that could have done better?
No, making Netflix out of it.
Do you want to be cast? Would you like
sure.
to? No, it was really good. To be fair, it was long. It was long. And I think it was good because it did keep ticking over, and with the dual timelines and the book within a book, you kind of felt like it was still moving along. I did regret that. I feel like 2/3 of it was the setup, and then it all kind of came crashing down in the last third. I would have loved there to be longer of that tearing everything down and then like that rebuilding for our main characters, because I feel like it kind of ended on a little bit of an open note, which I think is good because like sometimes I feel like those main characters have had their stories kind of poured out for decades and decades and decades, and now they were like reclaiming it and being like, actually, you don't get to know the rest of our story. That's just for us.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which I really liked. But I think if it was, I just would have liked to have known more. I'm like, what happens next? What happens next? What happens next?
Yeah, I hear you. That's true.
Who would you recommend this book to?
People who like a good mystery. They like to think. But, I mean, the good thing about this mystery is that there's nothing gory. So if you like a good mystery but you can't handle gore like me, I'm a bit soft, it's perfect.
It was sad, but it was not graphic in any way. It was actually really like, do not have to put any warnings before you kind of read this book. It's actually really, really great in that way. I'm the same. I think if you love Australian novels also, if you're a fan of people like Sophie Green, who also does like lighter books. This is not a Sophie Green novel, but if you like kind of being immersed in that Australiana, Kate Morton does that so well. All right, Joni, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So thrilled to talk to you about this book. It's going to be in my brain for a long time.
Yeah, same. I love it.
Now, as mentioned at the start of the episode, we'd love for you to join the Hope Book Club Facebook group. You can search for that on Facebook or in the show notes. And we'd also love this podcast to reach more people. So the way you can do that is to give us a review, subscribe, share it with your friends, especially if you think they will love this book, Homecoming by Kate Morton. Until then, stay reading. Here is your quote for this week from Arthur Conan Doyle. The world is full of obvious things which no one ever thinks to observe. Catch you next time.